This is going to be part 7 of Federalist number 17. This will be the last part for this Federalist paper. Just remember the previous videos I mentioned using BBC videos and other videos that are available, will be available to you, to have a general picture of the British history. It will be helpful to understand this paper, but not just this paper, to understand American history. That's what I did. I did not know anything about the British history, so I found some good BBC videos. I found some DVDs that are done by PBS or BBC with different scholars. Then, like I told you, that teaching company has a few videos. Plus, you can just look around, read books, maybe illustrated histories where it'll show you the maps and it'll make it a little easier for one to understand. You don't need a lot of time to do this. You just need to be very disciplined and find a few and watch it, and it will start making more sense as we go along. So last part we talked about barons, vassals, and he's talking about the European history around the Middle Ages and early modern times, like from 12th century all the way to the 18th century. How some kings became strong because the barons and vassals were weak. When the barons and vassals were strong, they could keep the kings in check. And what's nice about studying British history is that you see how some of these kings became almost absolute monarchs, almost like tyrants. They had control of everything. And gradually, these lords and barons challenged the king, and they took power away from the king gradually. And then the English had the Civil War in the middle of 1600s, and that was another good step to lead them to what they call the Glorious Revolution of 1688 and 1689. Then Parliament became very powerful, and on and on and on. So it's good to see this, that it took them many centuries to get there. And another thing that, like I said in the first few Federalists, one big advantage that the British had, excuse me, was the fact that they were an island nation. And remember in Federalist number 8, I talked about one of the reasons that the British had more freedoms compared to the people of the continental Europe is because they were an island. They didn't need a standing army. They needed big navies. And because of a small standing army, people could be freer, because always kings and rulers always use a standing army to suppress people, to beat people up, to take their freedom away, to tax them or take their resources any way they want to, and give it to a small percentage of their followers and really plunder the wealth of the nation. It goes on today. Look at the countries around the world. The majority of the rulers are thieves, and they only take the money and give it to the people who are supporters and hand it to the army so that the army can put people down when people stand up. But the thing is, that time is over. We're going to make sure that time is over. Things are going to change. So let me read these last 3 paragraphs to you. This is not an assertion founded merely in a speculation or conjecture. He says, this is not, I'm not speculating this. This is something real. This is something that we have seen. This is not just guessing. Among other illustrations of its truth, which might be cited, is Scotland will furnish a cogent example. It's going to talk about how Scotland and England united. First in 1603, but finally in 1707 when they had the Act of Parliament. So when you read the British history, you'll see that first they united. King James VI of Scotland became the king of both Scotland and England, and his title changed to King James I. And then in 1707, those two united. By the way, speaking of British history, British culture, when King James I in 1603 took over and became the monarch of both England and Scotland, he was the one who ordered the translation that is very famous, very well known, King James Bible. And when you study the English language, you'll see how much influence that Bible has had on the language. So this is another important reason that since we are choosing English as a common language, for us, our adopted world language, second language, okay? I didn't say forget your first language. I haven't forgotten Farsi. And that was the reason I translated the Federalist Papers into Farsi first, because I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding that I am saying that we need to forget about our first language. No, I'm just saying we need to adopt a second or a common language. So anyways, you will see the influence of the King James Bible on the literature of the English-speaking world. So anyways, by studying the British history, all these will make more sense. You'll understand American history better. It'll be great. So he's reminding the readers that look at what happened between Scotland and England. The spirit of clanship, which was at an early day introduced into that kingdom, uniting the nobles and their dependents by ties equivalent to those of the kindred, rendered the aristocracy a constant overmatch for the power of the monarch, till the incorporation with England subdued its fierce and ungovernable spirit and reduced it within those rules of subordination, which a more rational and a more energetic system of civil polity had previously established in the latter kingdom. They united, England and Scotland united, and all those clans of Scotland that at one time were unruly, then they could be brought into the control of the government, the central government. And it was better for everybody. I'm kind of telling you this in brief, because once you look at that history, it will all make sense. Again, all he's doing is encouraging the Americans to look at the history of the country that they have come from. Their parents, great-grandparents have come from. They said, look, England and Scotland united, all the clans in Highland and Lowland Scotland gradually got closer, and they all came under the control of one monarch, and England has become so powerful as it is now. So he knows that his audience, his readers, already know this. Why is Britain so powerful? He's saying because they united and That's why. They didn't have a standing army. They made their navy stronger, and they started going all around the world, getting territory, getting resources. So, by example, he's saying that we Americans have to do the same thing. We unite and have a very small army, just enough to fight the Native Americans on the West. Then we can start making a big navy and be a huge, more powerful than Britain is one day. So keep that in mind. I talked a lot, so there's only 2 short paragraphs left. I will leave that for the next video. So the next video will be our last video for Federalist 17. Just keep in mind that whatever it says, we have already talked about it. Unite, be strong. If you do not unite, you'll be just like countries of Europe that are always in war with each other, that are always keeping each other weak and down.